Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to crank it up here about 8:10 with Alex Marvez, who has his own show on Talking NFL on XM Sirius Radio. And then second portion, we'll have Brent Beaird talking a little college football. Some news and notes of what happened yesterday on campus. Gator softball goes to 30-5. They lose 7-0 to the UCF Knights. Out of two of their five losses have come to the Knights. So having struggled playing those guys, or girls, I should say. They head to Alabama for a big series against the Crimson Tide softball team this weekend. Gator baseball cranks up this weekend with a must-win sweep against the Missouri Tigers. Also volleyball. Mary Wise and her crew crank it up today against Morehead State. I think you can watch that on like ESPN Plus at 3:30 today. Also want to congratulate Anthony Nesty for his third straight SEC Coach of the Year swimming title. He's also now both the women's and men's head coaches in swimming here at the University of Florida. Back, he was here back in my days, long time ago. So we'll talk with Alex Marvez, like I said, about 8:10, breaking down the NFL draft, talking a little NFL, and then Brent Beaird at 8:30ish. I thought this was interesting. We talk about the transfer portal, and obviously you can see what's going on in the world if you Google stuff. But I was looking at, college basketball is crazy right now. And John, you're exactly right. John says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melton Law, hope we don't see UCF in the postseason. And that is somewhat of a concern because I believe this year in postseason in both baseball and softball, and they usually try to do this, it's very the locations of wherever the regionals are being held, they don't like teams to have to fly around. They'd rather bus them there. So it seems like we usually get UCF or USF and Bethune-Cookman and those type of teams that come in here for postseason play. But hopefully UCF can find somewhere else to go play because we are struggling against the Lady Knights. But I was talking about the portal, and, I don't have the stats in front of me. I can't find it. I had it earlier, and now I can't find the damn thing. But basketball, I know the Gator Nation was so concerned about Mike White losing players. We're like in the middle of the pack, folks, when it comes to losing players and gaining players in the transfer portal compared to other teams in the SEC. It's crazy right now. I saw where Xavier Pinson, the starting guard for the Missouri Tigers, is transferring, going to play at LSU next year. But the reason I brought this up, this is the transfer portal in the SEC for college football. The Tennessee Vols lead the league in transfers, or kids going into the portal, I should say. Again, once you go into the portal, that doesn't mean you're actually going somewhere to play. You got to hope someone gives you a scholarship. Tennessee has 25 players, Mississippi State at 18, Vandy at 15, Missouri 12, and you have three teams that have 11 guys in the transfer portal. Carolina, Auburn, A&M, LSU had 10, Georgia had 9, Arkansas had 9. Then Florida and Ole Miss only had 8. Alabama had 6, and Kentucky is at the bottom of the league. Only 5 players entered the transfer portal. We're talking college football. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. But basketball, I wish I could find what I saw, but it is crazy the amount of transfers in college basketball just within the SEC. I mean, absolutely crazy. So Mike White's already improved our basketball team tremendously. John also says here on Facebook Live, Eric Gilbert went into the portal, but he may end up back at LSU. Yeah, we talked with Brent about that last week. There's a good chance Eric Gilbert goes back to LSU, but we'll see. He's got some great issues, I believe. So we'll see. Not really sure what's going to happen with him. But before we get to Alex Marvez, let's talk about This Day in Sports, brought to you by Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. From now until May 31st, get our preventative maintenance plan for $169 and save almost 40% off the normal cost. Also, any maintenance schedule between now and May 31st, you will be entered to win a Nest thermostat with installation. This Day in Sports, back in 1947, Jackie Robinson becomes the first African-American to play in the major leagues with the Dodgers. And I want to say today will be the day, I could be wrong, but I think today in the not the national, but Major League Baseball is the day when everybody wears number 42. So I'll see if I'm correct about that tonight when we have some games. But that's about all the news and notes around campus. Obviously, gymnastics cranks up. I think tomorrow is the first semifinal. And there's two semifinalists. We talked with Jenny Rowland on Monday. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you enjoyed Channing Crowder yesterday. He was outstanding. We'll get him back on once football season cranks up. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from WrapSpot. April is your lucky month at WrapSpot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Again, we'll have Alex Marvez here in just a second. Brent Beaird giving us the news and notes of SEC football in the second portion of the show. Got a text here on the Titan MRI text line. It comes from Charlie. Charlie wants to know, do you think Emory Jones will be our starting quarterback next year? Yes, I do. I think Anthony Richardson will play. They're both pretty much the same guy. Anthony's a little bit bigger, but apparently Emory had a pretty good spring. You will see a different type of offense. We've talked about it many, many times on this show. That we're going to have people calling my show, Steve Russell's show, Sports Talk Radio during football season next year, wanting to know why we're not throwing the football a lot. But Dan does a tremendous job everywhere he's been, taking what he has and utilizing the best things for their abilities. And both of these guys are tremendous runners with the football. I wouldn't say trying to talk about the Gators going in the draft. I'm going to talk to him about some of the, obviously the quarterbacks. That's the big news coming out of this draft. Also ask him about the Gators. And I'm curious what his thoughts are on Sam Darnold going to the Carolina Panthers. I think that's a tremendous pickup for the Panthers. I like Darnold a lot. John says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. In high school, Emory Jones was ranked right there with Justin Fields as far as a dual threat quarterback. He was. I think a lot of people forget that it was Dan's first big-time recruit. He was going to Ohio State. They flipped him to come to Florida. So we're going to take our first time out. When we come back, we'll be joined by Alex Marvez, talk a little NFL draft. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Chomp Carter Apparel, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Le Macarons, Sushi Hana, Bass Pro Shopping coming June of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Tailgate and Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. Now we're going to go to the Titan MRI Hotline. We're going to be joined by Alex Marvez, who is an NFL radio host there on Sirius XM, also the voice of the All Elite Wrestling program on TNT. Good morning, Alex. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Shane, and I can't wait till you and I are up on that rooftop sooner than later over at Celebration Point when Steve's restaurant opens up. I am so excited about that. Not even funny. Fired up about the draft, fired up about this offseason in the NFL. It's just been a wild time. The year of the quarterback continues, and I know that you have no complaints about that being one of the all-time greats at the University of Florida yourself.
Yeah, but I'm still waiting to get drafted, Alex. You know, I didn't get drafted. I'm still waiting for some team to pick up the phone and call me, but it all worked out. Before we get into the draft, I love Sam Darnold going to the Carolina Panthers. I think he's a really good player, Alex. I could be crazy, maybe in the minority, but I think under Joe Brady, and I'm not familiar with who the Panthers have on the outside. I know they have Christian McCaffrey. What are your thoughts on that trade?
Oh, I mean, a tremendous trade for Carolina not with a lot of down. You know, there's very little downside to it, in my opinion, especially for what they gave up. Basically, a second-round pick and one mid-rounder, a fourth-rounder, and a sixth-rounder. And that second-round pick, by the way, not coming until 2022. So the Panthers still can make some hay with, you know, their offseason or their draft coming up. But I agree with you on Darnold. I mean, look, and we'll find out soon enough, right? I mean, I can't just say it's everything that worked against Sam Darnold in New York. Adam Gase was a disaster as a head coach. There was a very poor running game surrounding him. Wide receivers were shaky as heck. The offensive line was even worse. I mean, it was a real mess, you know, what had happened for him, you know, with the Jets. And, of course, the pressure of playing in New York. And, listen, in another circumstance, maybe he stays in New York. And I say that because if you don't have the number 2 overall pick, if there isn't a Zach Wilson, then maybe you give, you know, Sam Darnold a chance to work things out under Mikey LaFleur, the Jets' new offensive coordinator. But the fact of the matter is that the Jets didn't want to take that risk, and they figured to move on. So Sam can reinvent himself. Weapons on the outside. DJ Moore coming off another 1,000-yard season. So you know what he can bring to the table. You got Robbie Anderson, one of his top targets with the New York Jets. In fact, his top target during Sam's time in New York was Robbie Anderson. So they're reunited. You had Dan Arnold from the Arizona Cardinals, and I spoke with Dan a couple nights ago in my Sirius XM show. He's excited about what he's bringing, you know, to Carolina, and now he has a legit pass-catching tight end. So, you know, Sam does. So I think there's a lot to like for the Panthers. And like you say, Joe Brady, Matt Rule, these guys know what they're doing. And so it should be an exciting time if you're a Panthers fan.
Yep. All right, so let's jump into the draft. Before we get to the Gators, get your thoughts on where they may go. Everybody knows Trevor Lawrence is going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. Looks like Zach Wilson will be a Jet. That third pick, the 49ers have traded for. First of all, supposedly it's going to be Mac Jones. We don't know that officially. Do you think it's going to be Mac Jones, and why did the 49ers trade up to get Mac Jones? Do you like that, what Shanahan and John Lynch are doing out there?
Well, listen, this is a team that was just one season removed from a Super Bowl, right? And if you take away all the injuries that they had last year, Shane, they're probably right back in that postseason mix. I mean, I trust in these guys. They built a Super Bowl roster. So now it's just scouting a quarterback. And unfortunately for them, Jimmy Garoppolo has just not proven, you know, reliable in terms of the injuries. Now, that also doesn't necessarily all fall on Jimmy. You know, I mean, that's also the fact that the 49ers at times have had problems protecting him. They had him play last year with a bad ankle. It got worse, you know, about week 5, week 6 against the Dolphins. And that was all we saw of Jimmy Garoppolo again for the rest of the season. So I get it if you're the 49ers. You have that chance to jump up from 12 to 3 and secure your spot in line. The big question is whether it's Mac Jones, which, you know, if we're talking, Shane, in January, none of us are putting Mac Jones in this conversation of the top 3 quarterbacks, let alone the number 3 overall pick. It's just someone who, I don't want to say system quarterback, because I don't want to sell anyone short, and we just don't know, you know, and that's the thing that drives you crazy about draft analysts and all these definitive things that they say. I am the first to admit I know what I don't know, and I wish others in my profession would do the same. All that being said, you know, Mac Jones doesn't wow you with his arm talent. Mac Jones was a winning quarterback. He's very accurate during his time at Alabama. In fact, set the NCAA passing record, 77% completion percentage. That being said, that's Alabama. And that's, you know, with a semi-pro team, quote unquote, surrounding him. We saw the struggles of Tua Tagovailoa last year when he had to adjust to life in the NFL. There was Alabama open for wide receivers, and there is NFL open. And it's a very different deal. And Shane, you know this firsthand. You got to throw people open sometimes. The receiver can't do all the work, and Tua really struggled with that. So it's a curious assessment of Mac Jones. The one thing is, so you have players like, okay, Trey Lance, right, who just an incredible specimen, right, from North Dakota State. But, like Mac Jones, too, less than 20 starts. We're talking about 18 starts here in his college career. Only played one game last year. You're going to have to park him on your bench probably for a year until he truly starts to get NFL ready. I mean, you might get thrust out there next season, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be ready to play and to make an immediate impact. And we all see what happens sometimes when quarterbacks play before they're ready. So that being said, Trey Lance, though, may have greater upside than Mac Jones. How are the 49ers viewing this? Because they're sticking with Jimmy Garoppolo this year. They think they have a very competitive team, and Jimmy G's playing for his future in San Francisco. So, he's motivated. So there's him. There's Justin Fields, who, Shane, I'll be honest with you, talking to an NFL scout yesterday in preparation for this show, he said that he was stunned at how badly he does blitz pickup. Stunned. Like, it's not just the peripheral stuff. It's or having a feel. It's also A-gap blitzes. Like, people right in front of him, and he is not seeing them. Well, that is not good when you're a quarterback, especially with NFL teams now focusing so much of their pass rush coming up the middle. So Justin Fields has his questions, but can you get that? Can you build that awareness? If you're, a team in the NFL, none of these guys are finished products, Shane, as you know. So, can you build on some of the athletic gifts and some of the positives that Justin Fields has? So if it's Mac Jones, it's a stunner, but I think that may be one of these deals where in our system, the things that Mac Jones doesn't have don't show up, and all the positives get accentuated, and that's what makes them comfortable taking him with the number 3 overall pick, if indeed they go that route. And one more thing, too, and this is something for any Gator prospects who are listening, or if you're a parent of a future NFL prospect, do everything that Mac Jones did during the pre-draft process. You wanted him to work out? He worked out. You wanted him on Zoom? He was there. You want him to do media? He did it. This was someone who worked so hard, and was obvious how hard he was willing to work to try to succeed. And when you have a quarterback like that leading your team, that type of work ethic, it's infectious. I think it's necessary at the NFL level, and Mac Jones has really helped himself by doing that.
Yeah, you brought up the one term that is used so much that it drives me crazy, because I didn't have great arm talent. The word arm talent. And you see so many quarterbacks that have great arm talent, but when they get into the next level, the coaches think they can coach them up how to play the position, and after 2 or 3 years, they're out of the league. When you think of, I'm just thinking right off the top of my head, Brady, Breeze, Manning, I don't think any of them have, quote, NFL great arm talent at any point in their career. They were just damn smart and accurate. That's why I think people are loving Mac Jones, because he doesn't have great arm talent. He's smart, but he anticipates, and he's extremely accurate. I see that with Kyle Trask too. But do you think the NFL scouts, I mean, you talk to them all the time, they put so much emphasis on arm talent that there's more to playing that position than arm talent?
What's the Mahomes effect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this arm talent topic didn't really come up to the mainstream until Patrick Mahomes was making throws that make you say, huh? And what do we remember about Zach Wilson, right? This whole offseason. It was, during his pro day, dropping a 55-yard dime while rolling. He throws to his right while rolling out to his left. It's against air. I mean, there's no pressure, but it's this incredible throw. We see what Josh Allen has done, because he makes throws that other quarterbacks can't. So I think that's the thing that I think when you're drafting that high, and you mentioned those quarterbacks, and I think the Mannings, because intellectually they were so high up here, and you just knew they were bred to be quarterbacks, that maybe you give them a little bit of a pass. But that was the one hesitation. I don't say hesitation. When I talked to Bill Polian about what separated Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, Ryan was the better thrower. And he went back and he looked at it, but Peyton Manning was good enough to get the football everywhere it needed to be, just like so many of those other quarterbacks that you mentioned, Brady, Breeze, et cetera. But it's that quarterback that just has that type of arm that allows you to do things that others can't, that teams have become infatuated with. And that's where we're at. And since you segued into Kyle Trask, it's like, if you'd like Mac Jones, well, do you also like Kyle Trask? Because he has to deal with the same type of critique that Mac Jones does, which is, limited athlete, limited arm strength compared to some of the others in this draft class. And that's what's caused his name to not be mentioned in this upper tier of quarterbacks. Just people wonder how will he transfer to the next level. Listen, as you know, I'm a huge Gator fan. I'm a huge Kyle Trask fan, and I mean a huge Kyle Trask fan. But he's someone who may end up slipping out of the first round just because someone doesn't think that he has the upside to succeed as a consistent starter in the NFL.
Yeah, because, Trask, I look at Trask. I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, 245 pounds. I wish I would have been that big. But I've had some quarterback coaches in the league ask me my opinion on him. And I was like, look, I don't evaluate players like y'all do. I don't know if he's an NFL starter. He may be one day, but he's that dude that you can rely on as a backup that's not going to, rock the boat in the locker room. He's going to accept coaching, and he'll be ready to play on limited reps. And that's basically what I did. I knew the playbook. I could learn it in one day. I didn't have to practice, and coaches could count on me to play. I may not play well, but I probably won't screw up too much. But I think Trask is a guy that's going to be in the league. He may be in the league longer than any of these guys, in my opinion.
Well, and there's so much that you bring to the table like that. But then the question becomes, what is his upside? Ultimately, is this someone who can become a consistent starter for your team? And that's one of the evaluations an NFL club has to make. The other is, what type of offense are you running? And as you know, he's not going to fit into every system. You talk about a 6'5", 240 pounds. I mean, some teams are going to want someone who's a little smaller now, maybe a little bit more mobile. I mean, do we see him playing for the Baltimore Ravens? It's a tough thing. So I think you have to have those things come together. Listen, he'll get drafted. He'll have his opportunity. I just don't see him as having the same buzz, of course, as these other quarterbacks. And that's the reason why. But I mean, the other thing to say about Trask too, when that guy had the bad knee and he's still running the football up the middle, and when, the Gators are calling those plays and he's keeping the ball and he's pounding it, that shows you so much there too. The will to win on this guy is tremendous. And I'm so glad you pointed out he came to Florida as a backup. He was sitting behind Felipe Franks, and he still just was on the grind, was ready when he was called upon. And we never saw Felipe Franks in a Gator uniform again after he got hurt against Kentucky.
Yeah, we're speaking with Alex Marvez here on the Titan MRI Hotline. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex Marvez. Okay, Kyle Pitts. I've told people since I've become a Gator, Alex, there are two players that are the most unique human beings, or maybe the best players I've seen in Gator uniforms. One was Percy Harvin. I think he's the greatest player I've ever seen with the ball in his hands at Florida. The next most unique player is Kyle Pitts because of his athleticism, matchups, his catch radius, body control, whatever you want to call it. Who's going to draft him?
Probably, I'm thinking Atlanta at 4 may not be able to resist the temptation of a player who, again, when I talk to my NFL scout, he has Kyle Pitts, and he's not going to get drafted number 1, but he has him as the number 1 rated player in this entire draft, above Trevor Lawrence. And I'm sure he's not the only one who feels that way. Kyle Pitts is so unique. There is no comparison. I mean, and there really isn't. His wingspan, 83 3/4 inches, I believe. I mean, he can catch the catch radius he has is incredible. He runs like a wide receiver, but he's a tight end. I mean, he's going to be willing to block, and but that's not where you're going to use him. He can do so many different things. I mean, he's a weapon. And you saw at Alabama, Nick Saban was helping Patrick Surtain II. He was helping try to double cover Kyle Pitts. And Surtain is the best corner in this draft, and he couldn't handle him. So, I mean, there's just no one to even compare him to. I mean, you could say, oh, well, Darren Waller, but Darren Waller, number 1, was a wide receiver when he was coming out of Georgia Tech. I mean, that wasn't what, he had to learn how to play tight end. He was shifted by the Ravens and continued with the Raiders. So there is no tight end comparison to Kyle Pitts. If he doesn't go at 4, if Atlanta takes a quarterback, it gets interesting again, because Cincinnati at 5, you got to protect Joe Burrow. You can't still have these problems with this offensive line. And for a club that drafted Anthony Munoz, I think that they understand the importance of having that elite level tackle. And Penei Sewell of Oregon checks all those boxes. So if it isn't Atlanta at 4, it's got to be Miami at 6. And I think it's going to be very, between him and Jamar Chase, I get it. But Pitts just ranks so high. I just can't see him slipping to 7 at Detroit. This is also the type of player that if he's still available, you make the trade up for. Kyle Pitts is going to be a superstar in the NFL.
Yeah, the Falcons would be crazy not to take him. I still think Matt Ryan's got a lot of football in him. I think he's only around 35. You put Julio Jones, what is it, Calvin Ridley?
Yeah.
Is that right? And
Oh,
then
yeah, you got
Kyle
Ridley, and then on
Pitts.
top of this, Shane, you got to run the football. If you look at the demise of the Atlanta Falcons since 2016, it's this gradual decline in the running game. And last year they thought that one-legged Todd Gurley was the answer. And I love Todd, but he's just, unfortunately, that knee injury has just ruined his career. Ito Smith, guys like this, they have Mike Davis now, but they need a bell cow running back in Atlanta. If you see what Arthur Smith did for Ryan Tannehill, well, how did Tannehill start to flourish? The play-action passing game, because everyone was trying to stop the king, Derrick Henry. If you have that for Matt Ryan, Matt is, like you say, he can hit all these targets. Matt Ryan is just fine. He's not the problem in Atlanta, but when you're drafting at 4, and if you fall in love with one of these quarterbacks, I also understand the logic of securing your future with Matt Ryan being 36 years old.
Yeah. Kadarius Toney, you think he can get into the first round? I think he's one of the most improved college football players I've ever seen. I didn't know if he could play at the next level at the receiver position, but what he did this year was amazing. Does he go in the first round?
Potentially, I will tell you. Let me give the positives and the negatives. Which one do you want first, Shane? Positives or negatives?
Let's do positives.
Let's do positives, okay? According to Next Gen Stats, he has posted the maximum athletic score possible for any prospect, 99. You cannot get any higher. His combination of all of these draft drills. To put this in perspective, the aforementioned Percy Harvin, he scored an 89, okay? Yeah. So Kadarius Toney, a 99. And when you get the football in his hands, okay, just, the stop routes, you get in the ball, he's off to the races, right? Tremendous. Now, here are the negatives. It's an incredible athlete who is not really a defined route runner, nor are his hands that great. That's the perception that I've gotten from another scout. These are things that have to be worked upon. It's more like at Florida, they developed him to a certain point, but that's it. He's not a complete route runner, and he doesn't look like he knows what he's doing sometimes. And on top of that, the reliability of being able to catch the football. If you can work with him to develop those two things, you will have a superstar wide receiver. So I think, first round potentially, maybe early second round, but he has a potential to be a tremendous player in the NFL. Just has some work that needs to get done.
Marco Wilson, a lot of people have been down on Marco because of the incident against LSU, and they say he didn't cover well. I said at the beginning of the year, I thought Marco Wilson's a guy that can play in the NFL a long time. He had a tremendous pro day. What are you hearing about him?
The first thing when I mentioned his name, the guy who threw the shoe. Yeah, the guy who threw the shoe. Yes. Okay, we move on. Marco Wilson will make it in the NFL. No question about it. Okay. And despite this incident, it's something he's going to be asked about, and he will move on from it. Okay. People have done worse things before and been called out to an NFL career. Look at the bloodlines. His dad played, cornerback at the University of Miami. His brother Quincy is in the NFL. Marco is a good player. One of the bigger issue, I think, for an NFL team is the medical. You're talking about someone who suffered 2 ACLs, one back as a junior in high school, one back at the start of the 2018 season. So, what are the state of his knees? And Shane, it is important to point out here that when we do all these draft analyst things and we talk about these players, what we don't have access to is the medical information. And that's something that can knock a player down or completely off a board on a team. There are 150 players who went to Indianapolis to have a medical recheck to see where they're at. So in the case of Marco Wilson, you got to check, okay, is there early onset arthritis in his knees? What's his cartilage situation? Like, as you remember with Channing Crowder when he came out, Channing, was selected in the 3rd round by the Dolphins. And Nick Saban told me, we're only expecting to get 5 years out of Channing Crowder because he has a degenerative knee condition. So, I hate to be morbid here, but that's just the reality of what we got. So I think Marco probably a mid-round pick, maybe as early as round 3, I would think, at the corner spot. Hopefully he doesn't have to wait till day 3 of the draft, but trust me, we'll be talking about him in the NFL for years to come, just not going to be a super high pick.
We got a text here on the Titan MRI text line. It comes from Rick. He wants to know, what's the draft status of Chris Rump out of Buchholz, who went to Duke? His dad is a D-line coach, I think, with the Bears now. I know we're just throwing that curveball out to you right there, but he's a long, rangy kid out of Duke. I'm just not sure from a size standpoint how the NFL is looking at him.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I really don't know myself. I know what I don't know. I can tell you that. And, he is, listen, pass rushers with his type of size, you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. He would be, by the way, the first Duke player ever taken as an edge rusher in the draft. So I want to point that out. He does have to put on a little bit of weight. He's 6'3", 244 pounds. So, just looking at some of the measurables there as far as size goes, might have to be a 3-4 projection. So can he drop into space? He does lead Duke with the third most sacks in program history. But I've not heard, let me just say this, when we talk about, sleepers, this and that, I haven't heard his name too much. But Shane, I'll try to get you an answer and I'll text it to you so you can have it for tomorrow's pod up.
Oh, appreciate it. Last thing for you, Alex. Any sleepers out there that we should keep our eye on? Some guy from some small Alabama A&M or somewhere that may go in the first round?
Oh, gosh. You know what? That's funny you say that, like the Kyle Duggars of the world. I mean, those guys. I mean, North Dakota State has a tackle who, was, when you're on film, right? And, there's a player like Trey Lance. Well, there's a chance for other players on his team to pop, if you know what I mean. So there's a tackle from North Dakota State, who's awfully interesting. I know Vanderbilt rather has a couple of defensive linemen who have been generating some buzz. But it is interesting how this works, like in terms of sleepers. It used to be that you had legitimate bona fide sleepers in the NFL draft. And, but now all the scouting services out there, Shane, have changed this. And it's changing for the front offices as well. I mean, you're basically following an algorithm a lot of times. What these teams are doing, you have scouts, and trust me, they have to be productive, and say, evaluating certain things. But the scouting services provide a lot of this physical information on players. There's almost no stone that gets unturned when it comes to these guys. So no one that I've really heard, really obscure so far this year. But again, a question I can get back to you on as the draft approaches.
All right. Before we let you go, you're also part of the broadcast team for All Elite Wrestling. I saw where Mike Tyson's – is he a part of that now or what's the deal?
Mike Tyson is a friend of All Elite Wrestling, and he is a friend of Tony Khan, our owner, and, of course, family owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mike Tyson and Urban Meyer hanging out backstage recently on our shows. And Mike was our special enforcer on our Wednesday night All Elite Wrestling telecast for the Chris Jericho, Dax Harwood match. That was an outstanding match, by the way, and Jericho ended up winning, and Mike Tyson did his job as ringside enforcer, knocking out Dax's partner, Cash Wheeler, when he tried to interfere with the baseball bat. So, yes, that is Mike Tyson has been around our camp. It's been a lot of fun to have him, and just a huge wrestling fan, by the way. And he's been a wonderful person there. I know obviously a very controversial guy, but this man has been a sweetheart. Anyone wants a photo with him, he takes it. He loves talking to our wrestling legends. It's been really neat to have Mike around, and I just know that we enjoy having him as much as he enjoys joining us at AEW.
Before we let you go, let everybody know how they can listen to your show on SiriusXM.
SiriusXM NFL Radio. I'm on usually weekends now, 2 to 6 in the off season with Zig Fracassi, and then weeknights when I'm not on All Elite Wrestling, I'm on 7 to 10 Eastern Time. On this Thursday night, I'll be with Charles Davis, who knows his stuff, and I'll be mooching information off him to pass to you, Shane. As Charles prepares for the draft as well, and get to work with Bill Poley, and I work with Ryan Leaf. I work with Gil Brandt. I mean, just tremendous collection of co-hosts I have, and of course, All Elite Wrestling. We have a ton of programming. Dark Elevation, Monday night, 7 p.m. on YouTube. All AEW Dark, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. And, of course, our flagship show, AEW Dynamite, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT. All of us available on demand as well. If you were a wrestling fan and you lost interest, come back. Give us a chance. I think you'll enjoy the product.
Good stuff, Alex. Appreciate your time, my man. Be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Shane. Great talking to you.
That's Alex Marvez. Join us on the Titan MRI Hotline. Going to take our second time out of the program. When we come back, we'll be joined by Brent Beaird talking about college football. We'll be right back.
Hey, Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Pod Up with Matthews in the morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Weeby Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Route Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios at Center State Bank. We put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. Center State Bank, member FDIC. Now we're going to go to the Titan MRI Hotline and head up to Jack's, joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing fine. Excited about spring games this weekend in the SEC, and we've got around 7 of them that are coming up. So the nest 2 weeks will be nothing but spring games for the league. So we're anticipating maybe beginning, I won't say answering, but beginning to answer some questions for some of these teams.
Brent, I picture you this weekend hunkering down on your couch with some popcorn and just flipping through the channels at all the different SEC spring games. Is that what you're going to be doing?
Well, I actually will be in Bryant Denny Stadium watching the Alabama spring game. So, and it is the only game on ESPN. The rest of them are on the SEC Network Plus. Now, Shane, I think what eventually is going to happen with spring games, and I'll be quick about this, is athletic directors are going to see that a spring game could actually be a revenue stream. And instead of maybe charging $5 per fan, you might charge $10, and come up with a better television deal for a spring game and try to make some money off of it. So is that outlandish to think that might happen eventually?
No, I agree with you 100%. Are you going to be in the stadium with another 75,000 that they're probably going to expect? Aren't they opening up Bryant Denny this weekend?
They've got 50% capacity at Bryant Denny and 40% capacity at Auburn, and I'm sure somehow the Alabama fans will hold that over the head of Auburn fans. It can get that petty in the state of Alabama, but yes. And again, Shane, obviously, if you've got a 100,000 seat capacity in Tuscaloosa, they can have 50,000. I don't think they will, depending on the weather and whatever, but they've got the ability to do that this year.
Yeah, Brent, before we jump into the news and notes around what's going on in college football, John here on Facebook Live has a question for you. He says, Brent, I watched the FSU spring game. They looked a little small to me. Also, is it a growing trend with the extra padding on the helmets during the spring? I didn't get to see any of it. Did they have those contraptions on their helmets, all the players?
Well, it's funny that he asked that question. I've watched several pictures and videos just waiting to come on the air, and just about every one of them I saw some kind of padding on the helmet. So yes, I think you're seeing more of that. Matter of fact, I think it was Georgia that I was watching that had a lot of that on the helmet. So I'm guessing that's probably another safety feature that they've added to practice.
Yep, Brent. Okay, so it's official, I believe. The NCAA now is going to allow a kid to transfer one time without sitting out?
That's right. Actually, it will be official today. Before they end their meeting today, and again, what we're talking about here is the NCAA Division I Council started meeting yesterday, and they will continue today. They've approved a new rule that will allow NCAA athletes to transfer once with immediate eligibility. Now, this is not just football. This is several sports. was reading about it, and it even says hockey and so forth. So it won't be limited to football, but certainly for our conversation, that's more what it's going to be. It's been expected to go at some point. Some thought that it was unanimous. And now the thing we don't know, Shane, is the parameters around it. In other words, okay, we're going to allow you to do this between this date and this date. I think right now that's probably the biggest question that's going to have to be answered. I mean, this is not something that you can just do year round. At any time you want to do it, they're going to put some kind of date and borders around it. So that will be, I think, one of the big things that they'll figure out today.
Yeah, Brent, also, we talked a little bit about it last week, I believe, about recruiting. You know, it's kind of opening back up now. Kids are going to be able to take their visits on campus, those type of things. Are colleges going to be able to have their Friday night lights, their one-day camps where they get to see the athletes in person in action? Are they going to be able to do all that this year?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a part of this. Look, I think the way the coaches are looking, they can't wait for this to happen. In other words, the dead period will end May 31st, and that they will open up to where recruits can come in, coaches can go visit during that time, and what they'll basically do is just get the recruiting calendar really started over again, and I would think that will allow a lot of these things to happen. Frankly, the NCAA should have allowed this to not happen. That they shouldn't have blocked it again, but this time it's going to be open, and a lot of coaches are relieved about that.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, on the Titan MRI Hotline. You can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Brent, Bobby Petrino, he's still winning championships. Where will he be coaching in a couple of years, you think?
That's a great question. He led Missouri State to its first Missouri Valley Football Conference championship in 31 years, which is amazing. Look, Shane, you and I both know he'll get a chance somewhere. And the truth of the matter is, now look, you may not want to have lunch with Bobby, and he's probably not going to be your best friend, but the guy can coach. You have to give him his due on that one. So, and it may be a slow go as far as getting back up in Division I, but you can bet at some point a desperate athletic director will give him another opportunity.
Yep. And then, it's interesting in the HBCUs, the historical black colleges and universities, Jackson State hired Dion, which they got off to a fast start, but they've been struggling. I think they're like 2-4 right now. But Tennessee State has just hired Eddie George, which he's never coached Pop Warner.
That's right.
It's bizarre. He also hired former Titan head coach Jeff Fisher as a consultant, but I saw he hired Hugh. What is Hugh's last name? I should know this.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it too, and I'm zoning on it too, so that's okay.
Well, he was on Coach Spurrier's staff, and I cannot believe I can't remember his name. But anyway, he's going to be his offensive coordinator. And so what do you think about Eddie George being a head coach?
Eddie George is a fascinating study, frankly, that Eddie has been a co-host on Sirius Radio. Eddie, and people may not believe this, but Eddie has actually been an actor, and he has even been on Broadway. I mean, he has his own business. He has, it's really amazing what he has done in his career. This is one of those guys that you don't say he can't do something because at some point he probably will.
Yeah, Hugh Jackson. That's who his offensive coordinator is going to be.
Yes.
Hugh Jackson. All right, Brent, let's kind of go around the SEC here. You said you're going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend for the spring game. I have a buddy who has some kids on the team, and I was talking to him the other day. He said the defense is just wearing out the Alabama offensive line right now.
The defense has really improved because a lot of these guys have come back, and they're obviously able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, which frankly, and I know you picked this up, they have not been able to do that over the last few years. Now, Will Anderson and Chris Allen, their outside linebackers have just wreaked havoc throughout, and their defensive line, a lot of those guys come back intact. Tim Smith, who from the state of Florida, that Florida wanted, is going to be one of the better defensive linemen in the SEC. So there's no doubt. I mean, as good as their offense is, we think that has potential to be, their defense is, it looks like it will be probably the best defense they've had since, I would guess, right now, 2016, when they played Clemson the national championship game.
Yeah. Auburn, I believe their spring game is this weekend as well. There's reports that Bo Nix has looked pretty good under the trying to improve on what he's. We know he's talented, but
yes,
he's being coached up now by Mike Bobo, who actually played the position. What are you hearing out of Auburn?
The same thing, that he is getting comfortable and being under center. Now he'll go in the shotgun, I'm sure some, but they're trying to get him under center. Now, again, are they going to trust their offensive line to protect him? That's going to be big. They moved some guys around. J.J. Pegues has actually gone from tight end to the defensive line. You remember Pegues, Shane? He's this big 300-pound kid that they'll put in the backfield on the goal line and have him either carry the ball or block, or they'll throw the ball to him. So they're moving him around a little bit. And at tight end, Brandon Frazier is another guy that they really like too. So that will be interesting. And look, we forget about this. They don't have Kevin Steele anymore, and where he'll land up, well, he's just counting money right now. We'll say that. But the defense coordinator is going to be Derek Mason. Shane, could he be a real X factor for them this year, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I love Kevin Steele. I think he's one of the best defense coordinators in America. But I do think Derek Mason is outstanding on that side of the ball. I don't know if he's head coaching material, but I think that was the best hire Brian Harsin made. A guy who knows the league and knows defense. So, we shall see. Any new word out of LSU? I mean, it's still a mess with basketball and with football. Any new news out of there?
Nothing definitive there. They're still doing their investigations. But look, on the field, I don't think that they really, frankly, have missed a beat. I mean, their offensive and defensive lines are coming back almost intact. They've got three quarterbacks: Miles Brennan, T.J. Finley, Max Johnson. Now, they've got a few of their running backs that won't be able to play in the spring game this weekend. But don't think for a minute that they don't have enough talent to really, again, challenge in the West. I expect that's going to happen, frankly. So, it will always be interesting to see where that goes. But the future for Ed Orgeron and Will Wade, frankly, still up in the air. And again, I'm not saying that Ed Orgeron is going to be fired, but the problem is with this Title IX investigation, if they continue to find out that he knew a lot of what was going on in this investigation and didn't report it correctly, at that point, his future could be rather cloudy.
Brent, we got a text here on the Titan MRI text line from Daryl. He wants to know, Shane, could you ask Brent what are the different qualities Bryce Young has that are different than what Mac Jones had?
Well, I think for one, he just doesn't have the experience, but he is but they've really been impressed with him during the spring. Bryce Young is a 5-star that comes out of California, played a little bit last year, and really probably should have played more. He's pretty small, and I think they want to put about 10 pounds on him. He's not. I mean, he can run better than Mac can, and probably is a bit more athletic than Mac was or is. But so far, Nick Saban has said that he has stepped up and that he has taken control of the offense as a leader and has made the right throws. So, and I think that will be one of the fascinating things about A-Day is just to see how much he's improved.
Brent, I read somewhere, maybe it was on Twitter, that you know how they come out with these rankings throughout the country, who has the best offensive line, who has the best receiving core. It was the best backfield, and it was the Texas A&M Aggies. I don't know who's playing quarterback for them. I do know they got 2 tremendous running backs. They got the one, is it Anaya Smith, who plays receiver, running back? I think he's the best player in the league. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, they're certainly one of the best. And remember, Isaiah Spiller is among that too, isn't he, Shane? I mean, look, I don't think there's any – see, what Jimbo has done, and it's almost going under the radar, is they have really developed a really good line of scrimmage. I mean, and you remember them last year, I know. And listen, their defensive tackles – and that defensive line in total is going to be one of the best defensive lines in the league. And again, their biggest games, such as the Alabama game, are going to be at home. So that's why you're going to see some of the magazines and some of the pundits that predict these things. They may end up. Somebody's probably going to predict A&M to win the West before it's over.
Yeah. Brent, I know you got a few nuggets left for us, but real quick, I talked about this yesterday on my show, and I want to get your thoughts. It came out, I saw it on Twitter, the preseason FPI rankings for the SEC schools. Obviously, Alabama's 1, A&M was 6, Georgia 7, but the Mississippi State Bulldogs were 8. I thought it was a typo. What the hell are they seeing that I don't see?
Well, I don't know if someone was drunk when they did that or what happened. But look, let's be honest about this. Look, and I love Leach. I think Mike Leach is one of the better coaches in college football, but particularly offensively, and they will be better. But we've got to remember, and I'm glad you brought this up, that they only won 3 games last year, and one of those games was against Vanderbilt. So, I mean, for crying out loud, look, Shane, I have no idea where they came up with that either, and they may have just done it for fun as much as anything else. But look, they had Cincinnati like 27. Well, I can tell you right now, Cincinnati almost beat Georgia. I know they beat Mississippi State. So so I'm with you on that. I looked at that, and Shane, isn't it hard to take polls like that seriously when you've got a team like State? And I do think they'll be better, but they won't be. They're not going to be in the top 10, are they?
No, there's no way. I mean, I'm with you. I like Mike Leach. I think he's great for the league. Obviously, they started out with a bang against LSU, and then everything else got kind of awful from that point on. But gosh, 8th in the country. I like I said, somebody was drinking something when they came up with that FPI ranking, because I don't see it. Brent, we ran out of time. I went a little long with my man Alex Marvez talking NFL draft, but we'll get you on next week, and I hope you have a good weekend, a safe trip up to Tuscaloosa, and give us a report next week on what that team up there in Alabama looks like.
Well, we'll do that. And again, we've got like 7 SEC games this weekend, and we'll have about 5 more next weekend. Also, the ACC will have some of theirs. So it's exciting to see these spring games going on.
It really is. Well, Brent, be safe, my man. We'll talk to you next week.
Always enjoy it, Shane. Take care.
Yep, that's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MRI Hotline. I want to thank Alex Marvez from Sirius XM Radio, his NFL show. Join us, talk a little NFL draft, what he thinks the Gator players will go, and also Brent Beaird, who does a tremendous job for us as our college football analyst. Today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Be safe, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.